Whether you're a parent navigating myofunctional disorders or simply curious about optimizing your family's overall health, the MyoHacker Podcast is your guide. Hi, I'm Karindy Ong, a speech-language pathologist, myofunctional therapist, and a mom on a mission to bring holistic health to you and your family. Together, we'll explore whole-body connections and integrative solutions. Please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review to help other families discover this important information. Visit MyoHackerSLP.com for free resources and guides. Quick disclaimer. The content shared in this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast or its affiliates. This podcast does not provide medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a professional regarding your circumstances. By listening, you agree that the host and podcast are not responsible for any actions you may take based on the information provided. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the MyoHacker Podcast. With us today is my first return guest. This is Nat Udwin. She is the baby OT. We are going to talk all things babies, development, milestones, primitive reflexes, and what Nat does to support families. So, Nat, you're known as the baby OT and have helped so many families with navigating feeding, development, primitive reflexes, and just understanding the foundations of development. I want to know, when we think about oral motor development from feeding to future speech, what are the key primitive reflexes and natural movements parents should be aware of in those first months?
Ooh, okay. So I don't really think of it as in relation to speech. I know you do, because speech is kind of at the top of that development pyramid, right?
Yeah.
So speech comes way later.
Yep.
We're really just thinking about it as oral function. Like, can we suck? Can we swallow? What's the timing like? And so I know we've talked about this before with our bigger kids, but it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Feeding it requires coordination. And I talk about this all the time, but I'm going to go into it again. And this is the very first thing I explain to parents when they're in my office. The reason they come to me because their baby's not feeding well, often, not always, but most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And I tell them, look, I didn't forget to look at your baby's mouth. I'm going to get to that towards the end of our session, but I have to look at what their body is telling me first. And then I explain to them the reason being is that feeding happens in the center, the dead center, the midline of that baby's body. And coordination, yes, a lot of people just think of it in relation to sports, but actually it has to do with the timing of the left and right sides of our body. And timing and rhythm and accessibility and endurance are big pieces of that puzzle. The endurance piece is huge. And I talk about that all the time throughout my sessions with babies, with big kids. Even this week with bigger kids in my office, I talked about that with moms because I had a mom say to me, he can do everything you're asking him to do. It's just a matter of doing it more than twice. And she said he just gets tired really easily. And this was a 3-year-old toddler, but same thing with the babies is a lot of times their latch looks okay, but can they maintain it? Does it break down over time? And so when I'm talking to parents about feeding, I have to first explain to them why do I use the lens that I use, right? So why am I zooming out? Why am I looking at their feet? Why am I looking at their hips? Why am I looking at their overall symmetry? It's because if one side has to work harder than the other, then the function that happens in the center, where left and right side have to be really well timed to work together, it's going to break down, right? And somewhere it's going to fall apart, and then we will compensate. So my job is to figure out, one, are they asymmetrical? Is their nervous system firing as expected? And that's where those reflexes come in, which I'll go into in a minute. And then also, how are they compensating for all of this? Are they using tension? Are they posturing in a strange way, which does require tension to make those movements happen that they need to get the food out? Are they holding their breath? All these things. And so my job is to kind of, okay, what are we looking at? And then figure out, so what is it telling me, right? And then only at the very end of my sessions, when I'm working with families, am I going to look at their oral anatomy. Only at the very end, because I'm all the while, and this is part of my courses when I'm teaching about infant development to other therapists, I'm teaching them like when I start with the feet. I start looking at the overall body first.
Yep.
You know, I look at their demeanor and everything. But then when I'm actually starting with an like anatomical, physical exam, when my hands are on their body, I start with their feet. And just by looking at their feet and checking the reflexes on the bottom of their foot, their Babinski, I can start to create a picture in my mind of where that asymmetry is, how their nervous system is working. Is there tension? Is there not? How do they respond to stimulus? So the timing of everything, and we're starting to create a picture. And as I'm inspecting that baby, I'm painting a picture in that parent's head. So when we finally get to their mouth, they're like, oh yeah, that all tracks. Like that makes sense because I've already seen this right-sided tension pattern. I've seen it on their foot. I've seen it in their hands. I've seen it in their hips. I've seen it in their neck. I've seen it with their eyes. And now we get to their mouth and they're like, I see it. The parent sees it before I do. And I'm like, yes, I've done my work. So reflexes was the original question.
Right.
But the reflexes are supposed to work on their own. Like they're supposed to be this organic thing. Gravity's supposed to help us. Other sensory input's supposed to help turn them on or stimulate them. But lots of stuff can get in the way. Sometimes it's environmental. Sometimes it has to do with the birthing process. Sometimes it has to do with positioning in utero, all of the above. Sometimes it's just neurological and you know, it has nothing to do with positioning or external forces. But the point is, and it does matter a little bit what caused it. It helps me to figure out a little bit about the history or why. But honestly, I treat what I see. If I am looking, let's say I start on their feet and I'm stroking the bottom of that baby's foot and I'm looking for how their toes flare, how do they curl, I always tell the parents, you know, I am, because when I talk about nervous system stuff, parents get a little like weirded out, like, oh no, is there something wrong with my baby's nervous system? Well, not wrong, but it tells me stuff, right? It's how your baby's wired. And so I always say, like, I'm looking for symmetry and I'm looking for tension, right? And so then but what's so cool about reflexes is you can see them. I can see them. You can see them. Parents can see them. I can show them to the parents. So I can literally say, watch this, stroke your baby's foot, and I have them do it. So what's really cool is actually when I started doing virtual calls during COVID, the parents had to do all this for me. They do the reflex testing. I just tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So it's not rocket science. It's so cool, but feet are so telling. So I start with their feet. We look at how responsive they are, that Babinski, and then I work my way up. I usually turn the baby over and I look at their spinal galant reflex. And I look at whether it's there. It should be there when they're that first couple months of life. Sometimes it's over responsive. Sometimes it's not there and we have to turn it on.
How do you turn it on?
Extra stimulus. So we just go in there, sometimes with vibration, sometimes with my finger, sometimes we wiggle them on the table. It's friction. Yeah. Friction, pressure, that skin. That skin is where the stimulus comes from. So oftentimes it is that skin it's not getting the stimulus it needed for whatever reason. Maybe they were born via C-section. They didn't get squeezed through the birth canal. Maybe they had a really bad asymmetry, or they were breached, you know, some kind of positional challenge in utero. And for whatever reason, they didn't get that movement, that wiggling left and right on their hips that we needed to stimulate it. And now we've got to artificially do it. Now we've got to be intentional about doing it, but we turn it on. What's really cool when we turn it on is if a baby is like really stuck with their head to one side and their spinal galant is under responsive on one side or on both sides usually, I can use the spinal galant to get them to turn the head. And I can use that spinal galant to get them to turn on like a certain side of their body. It's very cool because reflexes work in clusters, right? One triggers the other, then the other, then the other. And so I look at the spinal galant. Depending on how reactive that is or how normal, I'm going to look at their spinal parez at the top of their spinal column.
I do not look at that one. Tell me about that one.
That one is flexion and extension. Oh, and so when you stroke
I guess I do, but I haven't.
I really only do if there's things, if babies are really under responsive or if we're really stuck. If we're really stuck in extension or we're really stuck in flexion, I can use it to get them out of it. Or I can use it to see some variation in movement. So I use it as needed. And then the huge one. I'm always looking at Moro. I'm looking at the Moro reflex lots of different ways. When I move their hands, I'm going to drop them out. I want to pick their feet up and see if I drop their feet, do their hands mirror? If I can't get a response, I'm going to go to loud noises, but I don't often have to do that in my sessions because usually I've already seen it. A lot of the babies that I work with have a very high startle reflex.
Yes.
And that ATNR is huge. And so, I'm not oftentimes up until about 3 months old, I'm more just observing, or I'm looking to see how responsive the ATNR is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it gives me a picture. It helps paint the picture. It helps fill in the blanks of where is their asymmetry? How responsive is their nervous system? And again, it's a very easy one to see.
Yeah.
If your baby is going like this every time they move their head and their arms are switching, I can show parents that. It's super cool to me to see. So, and it's really cool for parents. I'm like, look, every time we do this and they follow the light, boom, their arms go like this. Now,
so what Nat is doing, real quick, ATNR is asymmetrical.
I was about to explain it.
Okay, please do.
So I'm going to rewind. So the way I explain it to parents, so ATNR is a reflex. It's called the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. That is a super big mouthful for the fencer pose, which is what a lot of kind of baby books refer to it as. It also looks like a dab, if you remember that dance move. But basically, when a baby turns their head to one side, the arm on the same side will extend, so out like this, and the arm on the opposite side will flex, and the legs will follow suit. Now, the legs aren't super important to me, though, to be honest, at this point in time, because it's too much to look at for parents' sake, and honestly, it will get there when we get there, right? And that should be present at birth. It helps a baby move through the birth canal, just like the spinal galant reflex does. It helps with those wiggling movements, because every time we wiggle, we're switching sides. But most babies that I see have tension in their shoulders from feeding. And so a lot of them have restricted neck range of motion for one reason or the other, or they only go to one side. So even if they turn a little bit, they're still usually not going to elicit that reflex. And so my job is to make sure they can access a full range of motion over their shoulder, full range of motion over the other shoulder. And usually around 3 months old is really when I start to work with that a lot, because we start to develop the cognition factor where like eye-hand coordination starts to become motivating for a baby to then do that and engage with toys at the end of their arm when it's outstretched. And so until that point, we sort of I just want to work on their head, neck, range of motion, working side to side, getting their eyes to track, making sure their cervical rotation is good, and that they have the strength to do that. And then around 3 months old, we really start to use it functionally to start to reach for toys and start to develop eye-hand coordination. If we don't do that, we don't learn to cross our midline well. And that can affect so many learning abilities, really, as your child ages. And so oftentimes parents will say, well, what if we don't do anything about it? And I'll say, well, then they're going to struggle crossing their midline. We're going to struggle with tracking across a page when we're looking with our eyes. We're going to retain those reflexes. So every time they turn their head, their butt's going to wiggle, and then their spinal galant's going to fire, and then they're going to fall out of their chair at school.
Yes.
I see this all the time with my toddlers and my older kids. I had a 5-year-old in this week, and I said to him, you fall out of your chair a lot? And he goes, maybe. And I was like, sorry, buddy, but we're going to work on that. So, but again, retained reflexes, like, so
okay,
they were
right
extreme.
now, even though we're talking about babies, I
but
know
you can't
there are
talk
school
about
teachers that are listening going, these are my kids. Is there anything they can do at school? What can they do to help these kids?
I mean, just very simply, like, get brain gym exercises. Brain gym, look it up. Any exercises anything with the figure 8, infinity loop, infinity walks, like simple eye tracking exercises, yoga, anything that uses their full body. So 4-point weight bearing in quadruped, animal walks. But look up brain gym exercises. Like, that stuff is so easy to implement into movement breaks in your class. And I know that there's lots of there's different apps and things that teachers use that they play on their, what's it called? Their blackboard, the digital blackboards. And any kind of movement exercise that you can engage your kids in that require crossing the body with their hands, cross body movements, and all fours. So using all 4 limbs, so both sides of our body, and weight bearing, and then making sure there's something that involves some kind of eye tracking too. Those are massive, huge. So many school-age kids struggle in that area, and they just compensate. They compensate because they will look like maybe they can track really well to one side, but they're weak on the other side. So they look like they're tracking well to the right side. And then guess what happens when they get tiny bit past center? They just turn their whole body, which it works for them till it doesn't, till reading gets really hard. Till math gets really hard, till they get tired after an hour at school.
Also, I'll just add, when we see that it's so often that we then have restricted cranial motion and the face is not developing in the same magnitude, like the same vertical height, the same width as the other side of the face that has more of that mobility, that has more ocular movement, more just range of motion, more tension release throughout the rest of the body. Like, you actually will see, like, these are the kids when they're older that have a rapid palatal expander in, and that side that where they don't have that full range of motion, where their eye can't fully track and they have to use the body to move, that side, the RPE, or the rapid palatal expander, is not able to make change. And so then you see more movement and more, it's like, oh, they're expanding beautifully on that other side, but one side they're stuck. And that's when people tend to see me. They're like, we look really asymmetrical. Help.
Yeah.
Okay. So
man.
back to babies.
We just went down a rabbit hole.
I know we did. Oh man. Okay. And this is a quick episode, guys. So as you can tell, Nat and I, we're just going to have another follow-up because I have so many questions. This one. So we're talking about nervous system, soothing and sleep. I want to know your thoughts on swaddling, on the snoo, on noise machines, on like rockers. Tell me your thoughts.
I mean, look, I always tell parents, like, baby contraptions, containers, like, they can be a means to an end. If you have a baby that needs to be soothed and you need to step away for a few moments to regain your composure, to deal with your other children, to get yourself a cup of coffee, to go to the bathroom, put them in the swing, put them in the rocker, if that is what you need, for 15, 20 minutes. But everything in moderation is so important. If we are intentional about allowing our babies the freedom to move against gravity, so that means tummy, back, left, and right sides all need pressure to develop really a majority of the wake time throughout the day, and when they're sleeping if possible, then it's not going to harm them. It's when that stuff is making up a majority of their wake window time they are spent immobilized or partially immobilized, it's going to affect their development. So swaddles are a means to an end thanks to the back to sleep movement. We are using them to dampen a startle response because so many babies startle awake when they're on their backs. Now, that is a natural mechanism to keep us alive, to keep us breathing, to keep us in survival mode if there is a danger coming at us and we need to be able to startle awake and then get up and go. Not as an infant, but it keeps us alive, right? So that's why it's there. However, it's very disruptive, especially in these modern times that we want our babies to sleep long stretches through the night. They're not co-sleeping with us. And so how do they put themselves back to sleep? They don't. They're waking us up. And so a swaddle is helpful. I encourage parents to challenge the swaddle. So basically, again, it's all about mindset. Parents really feel empowered when they understand why we're doing these things, and they're not just told blindly, you have to swaddle until 3 months, right? We swaddle to dampen the startle. However, as soon as you are able to start letting one arm free, let the other arm free. I really talk to parents 6-8 weeks. We want to give that child an opportunity to learn to dampen that startle response. Our arms will never gain strength if they are constantly swaddled like this while we're on our back at night. So, babies that have low tone and are very floppy, when they're sleeping on their backs, they drop out and they fall out like this, and they don't have the strength to bring things to midline. And so we can work on that. But if you don't give your baby an opportunity to develop those muscles, you just assume at 3 months, we're going to take that swaddle off and they'll be fine. Like, it's not quite how it works, Freedom of movement is everything for these babies. So understanding that we want to get rid of the swaddle as soon as possible is helpful. It's not a problem to use it for the first couple months, maybe 3 months if you need it. But again, lots of movement opportunity throughout the day when they're awake, and gravity is your friend. So the snoo, we could talk about this forever, but The snoo just basically, it does what it artificially soothes the baby back to sleep, right? And so it replaces a parent's touch, and it robs that baby of opportunities to learn to do it by themselves. And so does it harm all babies? Obviously not, because I mean, it makes a lot of money and they keep selling them. Is it harmful overall? I don't think necessarily. But again, I
Yeah.
work with babies who struggle to begin with.
Yeah.
They usually have some sort of compromised nervous system, or they just need a little bit of extra help in some department or lots of departments. And so the snoo, it takes away a lot of opportunities for learning, for neurological development. And so again, we want to maximize movement, not minimize it. Sleep is really important for the brain. Like, it's not just, we don't just turn off in our sleep. I know people think that, but sleep is actually where babies run through movement patterns that they've practiced during the day in their brain while they're sleeping. And that's where we cement those neural pathways. That's why when babies pick up new skills like rolling, they actually don't sleep very well at night, because now they're like rewiring their brain while they're sleeping in this deep sleep, and it's waking them up all the time. And so if they're stuck in a straitjacket on their back for, 8 hours or 12 hours or whatever, for long stretches at night and during the day, when are they getting a chance to do that, right? It's all about understanding how babies develop and what they need to develop, and being intentional about how you use your time with your baby. So, something like the snoo, yes, it's convenient and it's such a helpful tool for so many families, but oftentimes the families that feel like they really need the snoo, there's something else going on, not with the family, with the baby usually. And, it's a Band-Aid. So everything in moderation, I would say, but the snoo is not moderation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What might be those things that you're like, there's
Or what can
something
you
else?
do?
Well, no, what might be those things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're like, it's something else going on?
Why
Give
is that
people
baby
some red
struggling?
flags. If they're like,
Ah.
I need the snoo, what are the red flags of like, go see an OT, go see lactation, go see, what are those things?
I mean, if your baby cries every time they're put down on their back, yes, that is massive. Or if, your baby, when they're on their back, they get gurgly, they get grunty, they're uncomfortable, they're blinking, there's just a lot of, those are reflux signs to me. We need to go see, I would start with a feeding therapist first and check out why we're potentially having signs of reflux. Is it something related to the way we're swallowing? Is it the way we're sucking? Is it GI related in terms of like it's from food enzymes or a food intolerance, or, I don't know, but we have to investigate. But transitioning in and out of states of being. So transitioning from being awake to sleep is a skill. It is not something we are born knowing how to do. We have to have opportunities to practice that. And if we are artificially just kind of turning everything off, we're not teaching that baby to build resilient nervous systems. And so that's where really OT over speech and PT, that's what we specifically work on with infants, is that neurological sort of repatterning or patterning and building a resilient nervous system through movement. And so if your baby really struggles to transition to sleep, I would say, yeah, that's something you can definitely seek help with. A sleep specialist is usually who people seek help with first, because it seems like the obvious solution, but oftentimes they're just going to put you on a schedule, and they're not really often teaching that baby to do things on their own in a developmentally appropriate way. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. So you have to choose your sleep specialist carefully, but I would choose a movement-based therapist first over sleep specialist, especially when there's, any kind of feeding challenges or just sort of challenges with your baby's demeanor. I don't mean like babies are supposed to be cranky sometimes, but, then we have these colicky babies those are the ones that tend to be, well, they come to me when they're 2 or 3 years old, and parents say, well, I couldn't put them down. So they didn't get any tummy time because they were miserable as a baby. And so, I mean, those are the kids that I wish somebody said, hey, there is help. Like, you can go see a feeding therapist, you can go see a PT, you can go see an OT or a speech therapist who can help direct you or figure out what the source of your baby's problem is. Like, it's not just something you have to grin and bear like our parents did when we were babies, So I don't know, I could go on forever, but.
Which is amazing. And sadly, we are actually out of
I know.
time.
Bummer.
So I just want people to know, how can they follow up with you? How can they join your wait list for your incredible foundational feeding for toddlers course that, guys, I am participating in. So you want to take this. It's so good. How can they follow up with you?
Well, right now, I have no idea when I'm actually offering these courses again, but soon.
Yeah.
I'm reworking my course to add more, be more intervention heavy.
Yes.
And so the best way to follow up with me is through Instagram right now. My website isn't current. Well, actually, my one website is. It's confusing. I'm in between two different business
We'll just say
platforms.
Instagram.
But Instagram is the best way.
Yes.
You can go to my Linktree on Instagram, and by the end of the weekend, I will have links there to join my wait lists for my toddler feeding course. And soon I'm putting together hopefully a virtual platform for dads, dudes, other caregivers to kind of work on also just infant development, how to support your baby, and just for those parents who kind of get lost in the shadows and who really want sort of a scientific approach to all of the infant rearing and need to feel empowered, because I think a lot of our programs forget about those people. I want to make the class that I wish was there when I was raising my son. So
yes.
But yeah, so those are the two big projects I'm working on now. I'm always available for one-on-one mentorships and in-person mentorships. So like you guys can fly to Atlanta and spend 3 days with me and learn all these things in person too. I love teaching. So reach out to me via Instagram. We can find a way to work together. And if you're a parent, I work virtually too. So I work with toddlers, I work with big kids, I work with babies, obviously. But yeah, if I am not the person to help you, I've got lots of cool people that can. So yeah, I just want to figure out the puzzle that is your kid.
Absolutely. Well, so exciting. And I'm so excited that we will be jumping into the MyoHacker method as well this fall, which is going to be, I'm so excited to have you on those live calls that we'll be able to, obviously we'll be talking about these things and you'll just be able to share your insights and your expertise as well, which is just gold. So everyone, you know the drill. Please like and share this podcast. It makes a huge difference if you can go and rate and review as well. That just gets this information out to other families. You know that there's someone you're like, they need to listen. They are stuck in this swaddle schedule hell. We want to get them out of that. Okay, so I want them to know about Nat and what she's doing and this information. It can be life-changing. So please share. Please reach out to Nat. She is Nat_the_baby_OT on Instagram, and I'm going to have all of that available in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. We know how valuable it is, and we just appreciate your trust. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the MyoHacker Podcast. Remember, small changes can make big impacts on our overall health and well-being. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. This way, more families will learn about this important information and we can make a bigger impact. Head on over to myohackerslp.com for in-depth resources and guides. You can also join me on Instagram at MyoHackerSLP for bonus content and demos. And if you have questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, send me a message. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, let's biohack myofunctional health as MyoHackers who change the world through intentional action and connection and breathing. Quick disclaimer reminder, the content shared in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only.